What happens when a child who learns that people may disappear at any moment eventually reaches the highest levels of political power? JD Vance's early life was a landscape of instability, marked by his mother's addiction, a revolving door of father figures, and the constant threat of collapse. This wasn't just an upbringing, it was a daily exercise in navigating chaos. The psychological research cited in the interview suggests that surviving such an environment often requires at least one relentlessly dependable adult. For Vance, that was his grandmother. Her toughness provided the consistency that likely prevented his life from taking a very different direction. But those early years leave a mark. Looking at his current record, you see a striking combination: a deep mistrust of situations and institutions, paired with an unusually strong capacity to empathize with flawed people. It's a pattern that even appeared in his marriage, an assumption that healthy relationships might suddenly end, a fear of abandonment that dictated his reactions long after he had reached safety. We're left asking how those private survival patterns influence the world he wants to build. His political ideology appears to mirror his personal history, a series of reactions designed to navigate a world that feels inherently unstable. After September 11th, that need for a stable anchor led him to enlist in the Marine Corps. Vance speaks of a nation's reservoir of patriotism, a finite resource of trust and sacrifice that citizens offer their country. His time in Iraq became a violation of that trust. He concluded that political leaders were squandering that reservoir on wars with unclear objectives. That youthful faith in institutions gave way to a belief that those very institutions had failed the people they were meant to protect. This disillusionment helps frame his most striking transformation, moving from calling Donald Trump America's Hitler to becoming his political partner. Vance's own explanation is that he expected Trump to fail, but eventually decided Trump had actually succeeded in critical areas. He argues that when the institutions you once trusted prove unreliable, intellectual honesty requires admitting your original assessment was wrong. It leaves a difficult question for the observer. Was this a genuine intellectual evolution, a necessary adaptation for a survivor, or a calculated move of personal ambition? Perhaps it's a combination of all three. That same skepticism of the establishment shapes his domestic views. The risk, as the interviewer points out, is that aggressive rhetoric can turn immigrants and minorities into the targets of public frustration. Vance counters that social division is what happens when demographic and cultural change occurs faster than a community can absorb it. For him, the friction isn't about individuals, it's about the speed of disruption. He draws a distinction between criticizing policy and blaming immigrants as individuals, emphasizing the importance of integration and a shared language and a unified civic identity. The danger he sees is allowing economic insecurity to mutate into racial or religious resentment because the need for social cohesion was ignored. For someone whose childhood was defined by sudden, uncontrollable change, the priority shifts. Unchecked change isn't an abstract policy problem, it's a threat to the stability of the community that must be contained. We see this focus on containment in his views on technology. He argues that artificial intelligence will allow the owners of capital to capture a disproportionate share of economic benefits, while workers see their influence vanish. He describes a tech oligarchy where wealth concentrates among a few, paired with unchecked surveillance and opaque scoring systems that influence ordinary freedoms. This distrust of unaccountable power extends to his foreign policy. He argues that military actions create unpredictable consequences and that hard verification matters more than diplomatic declarations. His view is transactional. Allied countries can cooperate while maintaining different interests, provided the United States acts as the senior partner. It's a world defined by clear hierarchy and verified boundaries. His skepticism towards Silicon Valley and his hesitance regarding foreign entanglements share a common root: a refusal to let distant, unaccountable forces dictate the rules of his world. But even a worldview built on defense and control has its limits. The interview reveals a personal movement away from that strict, rational skepticism. Vance has moved toward religious faith, expressing an openness to mystery, mysticism, and even the possibility of things beyond rational explanation, like extraterrestrial life. It's an interesting arc. A man who once demanded that everything be explained and managed in order to survive has become more willing to accept uncertainty and transcendence. Vance has constructed a political worldview that functions as a structural defense, an attempt to impose order on a world he expects to eventually fail. The most important question may not be whether we agree with JD Vance. It may be whether we understand how private wounds become public worldviews, and what happens when those survival instincts begin shaping the lives of millions.